In our last video on citators, we looked at some of the conceptual questions regarding how to determine if a case is still good law. Please feel free to review that video available in our legal research strategy guide if you have more philosophical questions. Today, we're going to focus on one case, United States v. Gaubert, and how we might go about determining if that case is still good law. You should follow some of these steps in your own research as you work to determine the validity of your cases. We can do this either in Westlaw, using a tool called KeyCite, or Lexis, using a tool called Shepard's. In Westlaw, we'll use our case citation to pull up the text of United States v. Gaubert. We immediately notice that there is a yellow flag, which indicates that we should proceed with caution if we want to rely on this case. Let's see if we can figure out why. First, let's look at the case history to see if the case was appealed. Here we can see that in our citation, the United States Supreme Court reversed the immediate court opinion and remanded it to the Fifth Circuit for rehearing. We might look at the decision from the Fifth Circuit to determine if anything in the rehearing decision affects our issues. We can do that by clicking on the link in box C. When we click on this option, we can see that it affirmed the court's decision in all respects. Therefore, this later opinion is not the issue that raised concerns. Let's return to where we were previously and check out the negative treatment tab. Notice how our main screen in Westlaw provides clues right on the document page to help guide you to the most negative treatment. On the left-hand side of the screen, we can see phrases characterizing the way these later cases treated ours. The most concerning later cases are instances where courts declined to follow the rules in Gaubert entirely. These phrases also tell us these decisions were made on state law grounds. If we click on the first case in the list, we can search within the text of that case to see where the rule in Gaubert was addressed. Note that in Sue, the court is quite critical of the Gaubert standard. If our facts were set in Hawaii, these concerns would be especially pressing and may cause us to choose not to use Gaubert, even if Gaubert remains good law in other jurisdictions. Other treatments, such as distinguish by or decline to extend by, may not have as extreme an effect on our case. What we will want to determine is whether our facts are impacted by later decisions not to extend or not to apply the Gaubert standard. The only way we can do this is by looking at these later cases, comparing their facts to ours, and determining how their holdings affect Gaubert. If we're using a particular portion of Gaubert that relies on an earlier case, say Dale Height, for example, we may also look at the table of authorities to determine if the cases cited in Gaubert are still good law. Notice how Dale Height has a red flag. We may choose to repeat the process we engaged in with Gaubert to determine if the section of Gaubert analyzing Dale Height that we chose is one we still feel confident using. Now let's explore the case in Lexis. Notice how here we also have a caution symbol, in this case, the yellow triangle. However, note the difference in the number of cases that the platform identified as providing reasons for concern. Shepard's tells us directly on the main document page that there is no negative subsequent appellate history. If we want to see those subsequent cases, such as the ones we viewed in Westlaw, we can see that information by clicking on the appellate history link and scrolling down to subsequent history. However, the information that there's no negative subsequent history is likely sufficient to allay our concerns. So instead, we'll embark on the next step and click the caution category to see the cases that have treated Gaubert negatively. Note the area on the left-hand side that allows us to view the treatment of these cases. Here, our results are ordered from highest court to lowest court, so Sue is no longer at the top of our result set. We can limit by jurisdiction here on the left-hand side of the screen as well. One handy feature in Lexis is that as we scroll through our results here, we can see snippets of the text from the subsequent cases where our case was distinguished, without having to leave the page we're on. The snippets will not be sufficient to get the full picture in every instance, but can be helpful in some. For example, let's take a look at Cole. Here, we can easily see the distinction the court made in Cole is that their case was about the overall execution of a research project, while Gaubert was not. We can click on the links to any of these cases to learn more. As in Westlaw, we still have the ability to view the cases that Gaubert cited to as well and learn more about whether they've stood the test of time. The process of ensuring case validity can be arduous, but is also extremely important to the work of lawyering. If you have questions regarding how to determine if a case is still good law, please ask us.